looking at how to compare hypothesis tests with confidence intervals for two independent group data. So when you make or perform a hypothesis test, you have two possibilities. Either you can reject the null or fail to reject the null. With those two decisions, in rejection, you have sufficient evidence to suggest the alternative. And if you fail to reject the null, you have insufficient evidence to suggest the alternative. So for each of these scenarios, what would you see for a confidence interval? Well, consider that if you had a difference, you would have some numeric value that is different than 0. So showing no difference, you would have a difference equal to 0. So if you were doing mu1 minus mu2, no difference, that mu1 minus mu2 would equal 0. If you had a difference, mu1 minus mu2 would not equal 0. So considering that in a confidence interval, you would have exclusion of 0 if you rejected the null, meaning you rejected that their difference was equal to 0, or if you failed to reject the null, the confidence interval would include 0. So remember, failing to reject the null when you're talking about two independent group data would indicate that the two means were equal. Rejecting the null would mean that you rejected that the two means were equal, which means that you should have a confidence interval that reflects that, which reflects that there's a difference, meaning that it excludes 0. So 0 indicates that there's no difference. If it's included in the confidence interval, that's what we would see also in the hypothesis test, that we would fail to reject the null. If 0 is excluded from the confidence interval, we would see that in the hypothesis test by rejecting the null. When can you compare the two? There's two rules. The hypothesis test needs to be two-tailed, which means the alternative needs to be mu1 does not equal mu2. And you also have to have matching confidence level and level of significance. And to know if they match, they should add up to 100%. So 95% confidence level with an alpha of 0.05 would meet that 100%. 90% confidence level with an alpha of 0.1 would also be matching confidence level. So this is how you compare a hypothesis test with confidence intervals. They will always show the same thing. And so if you reject the null, the confidence interval that you calculate for the same data should exclude 0. If your hypothesis test you fail to reject the null, the confidence interval for the same data should include 0. And remember, you can only make this comparison if the hypothesis test is two-tailed and if your confidence level and level of significance match.